In a new memoir, former Secretary of Defense Robert Gates criticized President Obama, Vice President Biden, and members of Congress. The book is called Duty, Memoirs of a Secretary at War. Bill Daley, the president's former chief of staff, told us this morning that Gates should have kept it all to himself.
This rush to do books by people who leave an administration while the administration is ongoing, I think is unfortunate. It's one thing as historians look back on an administration, but in the middle of it, when you're pursuing a war at the same time, and one that is very controversial with the American people and has been very difficult on our military, I think it's just a disservice, to be very frank with you.
Rita Braver interviewed Secretary Gates for this weekend's edition of Sunday Morning. Rita, good morning.
Good morning, Charlie.
So you've seen the secretary, you've read the book. What was his biggest problem with the White House?
You know, there were so many. And I should say that his specific criticisms of the president were quite limited. I brought in my copy of the book to show you. It's like 600 pages. And but he really had some harsh words about the White House staff, about their meddling in places they shouldn't be meddling. At one point during the interview, I said to him, you know, when I was reading this, I wasn't sure whether I was watching an episode of Dallas or hearing about the machinations in some Renaissance palace, and he said all of the above.
You know, Rita, yeah, you point out that, I mean, he says in the book that out of the president that they have a similar approach to dealing with national security issues, but he's much tougher on Vice President Biden, saying that he was wrong on nearly every major foreign policy and national security issue over the past 4 decades. Why that particular criticism of the vice president?
You know, I think they just didn't see eye to eye on very much. And he was also very angry, it seems, at Biden, although, again, he says that Biden personally was very likable, impossible not to like, funny and irreverent in meetings. But what really seemed to trouble him about Biden was he said that there was a suspicion in this White House of the military commanders, that they were constantly asking for more resources, more troops, and that Biden was constantly, he thought, trying to undercut the military brass, encouraging factionalism within the White House, whispering in the president's ear. In fact, he sort of said metaphorically shouting in the president's ear and trying to undercut the military commanders a lot. And he did make a distinction for both the president, of whom he said there was not a lot of passion for pursuing the war, and Vice President Biden, saying that both of them, he thought, did personally care about the troops.
And then, Rita, I have to ask you, because you've covered the White Houses before, you know this White House. Do you think that after this criticism comes out of Vice President Biden, it's interesting that the White House has now opened up for coverage for one of the rarest times? I mean, this never happens, of the president and the vice president today having lunch. I mean, there's some damage control going on.
I absolutely think that. I think there is a sensitivity to what was said about the vice president. I have to say that, you know, you talk, Nora, about covering Washington, which you and I have both done for a long time, me a lot longer than you. And this is really one of the most frank memoirs I have ever read. I was so surprised at how detailed he was in recounting what happened at specific White House meetings. I asked him why he was so frank in this memoir, and he said mainly it was because he had a reputation for frankness and being forthright, and he didn't see how he could be any different in the book.
Rita, thank you so much. Can't wait for Sunday morning.